Stupid. Classic television. Modern news and analysis. Stay tuned to DGTV.
After a 2-week hiatus due to the passing of his grandfather and personal reasons, he is back. Darren Gilbert has returned. Better than he was before. Better. Stronger. Faster. And so, DGTVnews and commentary is once again broadcasting. Brought to you today by Classic Heinz Ketchup. Heinz. There are no other kinds.
Boy, your ketchup's slow. Me and Mom doesn't buy a Heinz? Look, what's fancy? Wait till you taste it. What do you think? Can I stay up with you all night, Tim?
Thick, rich Heinz ketchup. The taste is worth the wait.
Now, here is the star of DGTV News and Commentary, Darren Gilbert, reporting today from Wasaga Beach, Ontario, Canada.
Thank you. First, thank you to everyone for your warm wishes and condolences on the passing of my grandfather. I'll have you know I was not going to cancel DGTV News and Commentary. There will be no backpedaling here. We're back on the air. Item. A lot has happened in the last couple of weeks. The government of Tunisia and the government of Egypt have been overthrown by the people of these countries. This is cautious good news. In the case of Egypt, we need to be concerned about the Brotherhood of Muslim and communicate to Egypt that it will not be acceptable for the people to elect an Islamic extremist party to govern the country. They need a leader who supports freedom, human rights, and democracy, not Islamic extremism and other radical views. We now have a number of uprisings in other Muslim countries, including but not limited to Libya, Yemen, and of course everyone's favorite, Iran. President Barack Obama was quite vocal in wanting the leader, Hosni Mubarak, to resign from Egypt after a while. That was what he communicated to everyone. And he's been a little more mum on Libya, Yemen, and Iran. Why isn't the president out there cheerleading the people in these countries who have taken to the streets and are risking their lives? His ally, he didn't hesitate to criticize publicly, Mubarak. He should be out there condemning on a daily basis, particularly Iran, the governments of Iran, and Muammar Gaddafi, who had pretended to moderate the last several years, but is now calling for a war on white people. Obviously, he's in trouble, and he's trying to ratchet up rhetoric in order to get the masses angry at someone other than him and his dictatorship. What can the president do? Well, aside from offering major verbal support, which he hasn't done thus far, he could also sell on the cheap or even give away free weapons to the freedom fighters in these countries. Why not arm the citizens? Because they're taking to the street and they're being murdered by the governments of these countries. Give them something to defend themselves with. And pontificate publicly to the world and Egypt that he will not accept the Brotherhood of Islam being elected in Egypt. It's going to make Egypt go in everyone's bad books if they do that. So, as the people take to the streets, we look at the United States and people taking to the streets. And just what in the hell is going on in the state of Wisconsin? Democratically elected Republican Governor Scott Walker campaigned on a promise to get the finances of the state and the government back in order, because Wisconsin, like many other governments in the world, example California, United States of America, Greece, Iceland previously, and Ireland previously, are in very serious financial trouble and on the verge of going bankrupt and not being able to pay their debts. Printing money is only going to result in stagflation. So what does he do? He tries to get finances under control in the state of Wisconsin, by announcing that the civil service workers, most of whom are unionized in Wisconsin, will have to start contributing some of their own money to their pension plans, and that they will be losing some of their collective bargaining powers. And what happens? Mass protests in the streets, demonstrations, hyperbole, and the Democrat state senators left the state and have gone in hiding in Illinois. You need at least one Democrat state senator there in order to pass legislation. Democrats are doing what they often do, evading the law and being cowards. So what's going to happen in Wisconsin? The governor says he's not going to cave in, and this will only embolden him. And that is good news, and people around the United States and Canada and the world need to take note and watch. What is happening in Wisconsin, what attempted to happen in New Jersey, but Governor Chris Christie was able to stand up to them, is you've got the public sector unions trying to combat change in terms of getting finances under control. And it's going to be happening in other governments. You need to stand up to them and not cave in. It's even happening in the city of Toronto. We've got a Canadian Union of Public Service Employees convention going on this weekend, and they are out denouncing Rob Ford, the mayor of Toronto, and his attempts to declare the Toronto Transit Commission an essential service. Now the TTC is saying, oh, don't worry, we won't go on strike, we promise. Don't fall for it. Now is the time to stand up to them, because you've got people behind you. Do the cutbacks that are necessary. Speaking of cutbacks, in the province of Ontario, a couple of years ago, Liberal Premier Dalton McGuinty increased the price of beer so that you could no longer buy a case of 24 beers for $24. That used to be the lowest legal price in Ontario. I don't know why we need a lowest legal price anyways, but some of the economy brewers would advertise $1 a beer. And Dalton McGuinty didn't like that, so for social responsibility reasons, he increased the price of the beer a bit. Ontario Conservative leader Tim Hudak, who will be facing McGuinty in the upcoming October election later this year, has promised to reduce the prices back to $1 a beer. And now the Liberals are saying, oh, you're trying to buy votes with $1 a beer. He's just trying to bring the price back to where it was. Are people buying less beer because the price increased? No, they've just got less savings. They're spending more on electricity, although McGuinty has cut the price 10% until after the election. Speaking of buying votes, Dalton. So get out of our life, Liberals, and nanny statism, Mr. Nanny. Let us have our $1 a beer. Quit trying to legislate our lives. It's against the law in Ontario now to use your cell phone when you're driving. It has been for about 1.5 years now, I believe, including texting. And there was a crackdown this past week in Toronto on drivers who were using their cell phone and or texting. And now there's talk of instituting demerit points on top of the fines. Just get out of our life, okay? You've got the fines there already. Personally, I was able to use a cell phone and drive just fine before this law came in. Now I've got a hands-free device on my visor, so anyone in the car hears my conversation now. I'm not going to wear one of those damn Bluetooths on my ear. I can't stand them. So, are they going to bring in demerit points? I sure hope not. There's also talk now of legislating snow tires in Ontario, that come winter everyone has to have snow tires. Can I ask you a question? What are tenants who live in apartment buildings and condominium owners going to do with their set of 4 tires not being in use? Be the summer tires in the winter, or the snow tires in the summer? Where are they supposed to put those 4 tires? In their living room? People don't think about these things. Not going to affect Dalton in his big house where he can put them in his triple car garage or what have you. Think, people, outside of your own little box and your own little world. Other people don't have as much space to put these things. Let people decide if they want snow tires or not. I have snow tires. I don't want to legislate people having them. And finally, in other news, actress Peggy Rea has died. Peggy Rea played Lulu Hogg on The Dukes of Hazzard. She was a co-star on that show. She died at the age of 89 due to heart failure. And also, Betty Garrett is dead at the age of 91. Betty, of course, is best known for playing the mum on Laverne and Shirley. Betty, of course, had a much longer career before Laverne and Shirley and after on Broadway and in movies where she starred opposite Frank Sinatra in 2 of them. She died of an aortic aneurysm, 91 years old. A nice long life. Good for you, Betty Garrett. That is DGTV for another week. Thank you so much for bringing me into your home. Till next time, goodbye.
DGTV is Darren Gilbert Television. You are watching it. Classic television, modern news and analysis. Stay tuned to DGTV.